it was funny. There was one in North Hollywood a couple of weeks ago where I had this giant magnet. It's like 20 inches by 30 inches. And I go to put it on this guy's hood. And he's like, he's holding me here. I'm like, I don't think I'm that strong, sir. And just by touching your hood, I don't think I'm, like, I don't have a force field in my hands. But and he got out and he was screaming at me. I think he was a sovereign, what is known as a sovereign citizen. These are people who they believe that the laws of, you know, whatever country they're in this case, the United States, don't apply to them. And because he kind of started rattling off dubious legal concepts at me, beside the whole magnet thing, and it was so that's one of the things, like with real people, is you just never know what you're going to get, and sometimes you get these funny weirdos.
You definitely do. What store do you think on average are you finding the most weirdos at?
Well, I mean, Walmart's the easy answer, and it's accurate, because it's just a lot of volume. It is people who maybe don't care about other people as much. Although I've done plenty of stuff at like high-end stores where people have been dicks there too. You know, lots of Lexuses and Maseratis and BMWs and Mercedes that are being thoughtless as well. So it's not just a lower class thing. But I think just because Walmart is kind of the catch-all for everybody. And then Dollar General is one I would like to do more at, but they just have such small lots and tiny. It's just they don't have the same throughput. But yeah, Walmart I think is just the easy answer. It's funny. When I was in Victoria in Canada, we were going to some like the local stores. There's one called Canadian Tire and some other stuff. And they were, there was maybe one or two carts at those places. But the woman who I am friends with, who was my like local tour guide, is like, well, you go to Walmart, you're going to find them. And like, well, okay, let's go to Walmart. And sure enough, didn't take long.
Do you have preferred cart corrals, preferred carts of choice? I mean, you've been doing this for a while, so I figured we gotta kind of cover some of these questions.
Yeah, cart wise, I think the nicest ones are the big plastic Target ones. They're quiet. They ride smoothly. Many times they have a cup holder and or a cell phone holder in them. They're plastic, so they're less likely to cause damage. I think the smooth ride on those is the thing I enjoy the most. And then as far as the cart returns, the best one, I hope I don't get, I believe it's Safeway, which is a West Coast, mostly you see it in Oregon and parts of like Central California. And I've done little videos on this where they take their cart returns and they line them up all parallel across the entire lot, and they're double barreled, two-sided, and they have these giant, like you've seen the little cart pushing little, I don't know what you call them, robots or whatever, but they have big ones. And the dudes, if you ever see them, they'll have, it's got to be 50 carts on these things because they can just go all the way through all the lanes, and because they're all lined up. And so they're very professional about how they do it and return stuff. I'm pretty sure
it could be Winco.
Triple check, make sure I give them the.
It's because
Winco, yes, that's right.
I'm like,
Winco,
I don't think it's safe.
Not safe.
Like, that sounds like a Winco to me.
Yeah, that is Winco. You are correct. Yeah, not fully nationwide, but yeah, you see a lot in Oregon, Northern California. Winco is the.
You done anything at Home Depot, Lowe's?
Done a few Home Depots. They're fine. It's I did one in the Home Depot in Maui, of all places, just because they're one thing I love about the most interesting thing about Hawaii is they have wild chickens. So you'll be walking through the Home Depot in Maui, and there will be a family of chickens just running around doing whatever. They were brought in, a couple hundred years ago, and they proliferated. And I guess the local cats don't get them. There are no coyotes on Hawaii, I don't believe. They're everywhere. So that's like the fun little thing. Oh, there's chickens here, just hanging out, doing whatever. But yeah, Home Depot's fine. Do a few here and there. I try to get the local stores. So like in the Southeast, it'll be Kroger, and in Colorado, it's called King's Supers, but it's spelled with two O's. There's Fry's in like Arizona, Smith's in Nevada. It kind of I like finding those in Wegmans in upstate New York. I like finding like the stuff that's has more regional flair.
Okay, yeah, I that makes sense. I'm trying to think of like, I feel like Trader Joe's is everywhere. So you ever done? Yeah,
I've done a few Trader Joe's. They tend not to have the larger parking lots. But yeah, when I do find a bigger Trader Joe's, maybe it's part of a bigger like strip mall or shopping center. I've done a few of those. Yeah. In fact, one of the probably the most viewed video I have, at least on YouTube, was at a Trader Joe's where the guy chased me around the parking lot for 15 minutes and chased me past where the cart return was in order to prove to whatever that he was right and I was wrong.
Was he trying to hurt you or like what? Yeah.
Oh yeah. He it was funny because he's driving this beat up truck and he left his cart next to his passenger door. So close, in fact, that he couldn't even open his door all the way to get into his own truck. So if you can't open your door to get in, what's the next person going to do? You're just being a dick. You're leaving your cart and it's making it harder for the next person. So I go over there and this is when I just started using the magnets. And and he kind of laughs me off at first. I've been up since 4 a.m. or whatever. And then as soon as the magnet goes on, again, this truck's beat up. Who cares? But that's the ego thing. He's not going to let it happen. So he chases me, or he walks me back, aggressively past where the cart return is. And then he says, "You're this close to being on the ground." And I said something to the effect of, "Well, I don't think you can catch me." And he goes, "Why? Because I'm a fat asshole." And then, as I was just trying to play along, I said, "Well, sir, we don't body shame," and blah 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 blah. And then he's like trying to pull the manager in, and like just people walking by on the street trying to pull them into the argument. It's like, this guy did this and this and that. And then at one point we're on the side, and again, this is 10 minutes later, we're on the sidewalk outside the Trader Joe's, and he's like, oh, he sees like that I'm wearing the GoPro on my chest, and he's like, "Oh, are you gonna put this on YouTube?" And that takes like 5 or 6 steps, and I'm playing a character like the Boy Scout, like, "Let's test out the running skills," and I'm 50 feet away, and he's like, he stopped running. He's like, not gonna. But yeah, he certainly, they call it assault and battery, right? So assault is the credible threat. Lawyers can correct me on this or help me be more precise, but the assault is the credible threat of violence. Like, if I walk up to you with my fist raised and I'm very angry and I'm going to say, "I'm going to punch you," that's assault. The battery is the battery, punching, the beating and the punching and the whatever. So he definitely committed assault. And by the way, I've never pressed charges on anybody for that sort of assault and battery, even though it's happened to me many times. But yeah, he tried to beat me up, threatened to beat me up. But all in all, I don't know if he learned his lesson. Do you think that
you keep doing this because you get like a little jolt of adrenaline? I mean, you have to. You have to.
It's funny. Yeah, because people talk about that. Like, aren't you scared, or does it give you a rush? And the sad truth of it is, not anymore.
Shit, you don't even get a rush anymore?
Well, it's like I would get like butterflies initially, but talking about like martial arts and stuff, I started doing like that sort of training to kind of, because I'd done sports, rugby and football and stuff, so I'm used to like hitting with my body, but I'd never really dealt with how do you deal with somebody throwing punches and defend yourself in that respect. And once I started doing that, the whole like threat of getting beat up really lost its edge. And like I mentioned, the guy in Oregon from a couple weeks ago, he gets out of his car and for him, full on sprints at me with his arm raised. So I knew where the punch was coming from. All I just did was like that. And it didn't even like bruise my forearm. So, and which made him, of course, even feel stupider, because here he is in full like 10 out of 10 rage mode. And I'm just like, nah, I'm blocked your attack, sir. Now let's talk about the cart. So I'm always like, I'm never fighting people. I'm never engaged. And people say, "Well, why don't you fight, you puss?" And I'm not going to beat someone up, even if they are clearly in the wrong and they start the fight over a cart. Like, this is not about that. This is about being civil and polite to each other in face of extreme violence.
I gotta say, with all of the videos I've watched, I will confess, I do very much enjoy your YouTube channel, and the one of the videos that was more recent, I can't recall where, but it was a guy in he was in like a black sedan that had been like lowered and something, and you got the flags now. I don't know if those are suction or magnetic, but that's brilliant. I loved the guy's excuse too, that he was from somewhere that's not part of the culture or something.
Oh yeah, that was here in like the desert area of California, and again same deal where he had not even like tried to like put his cart up against the curb or whatever. It was just fully blocking the door of the car next or the truck next to him, and he kind of tries to ignore me for a little bit, and then like you're saying, he goes, man, you don't know where my family's from. And of course, I'm a smart ass. And I'm like, are they from the land of people who don't return their carts? Or the land of lazy? I forget what I said exactly. But yeah, then he throw the magnet on. He gets off, throws it out. And I think that's what really pisses him off is that I don't take no for an answer. Essentially, like, oh, you threw my first magnet on the ground where I have 5 more right here. And so then he's like, well, he's not going to give up. So he drives a little bit away. I've also got this flag, which says the same thing. I don't return my shopping cart like a jerk. And it's maybe 2 feet. And then I just walk up to where he is because he's in traffic. Can't drive away. And I just suction it on. He drives away a little bit. And what we didn't show in the video is there was a couple who were fans who were watching the whole thing. Like, and I talked to them afterward, gave them a sticker or whatever. But they were watching and they were just like, man, I can't believe these people really behave like this in public. And it's like, yeah, these videos are real life, unfortunately.
That's wild. That's insane.
Do you think that goes to show a little bit about our society as a whole is the fact that people will freak out on you for just trying to, tell people sometimes a little argumentatively or what's the word? Argumentatively is not the wrong. Sarcastically,
confrontational,
to put their carts away. Like, are you worried about the state of our society?
Well, I think it's number one, yeah, somewhat. But the most telling thing about that is that the comments I get from other parts of the world, it's especially like Norway, Sweden, Finland, they'll say, this would never happen in my country because we just take our cards back. Like, to even leave it out is unthinkable.
Time out. I'm going to push back on that one right there. I lived in Denmark and I've been all over Scandinavia, and there's that coin system, so they want to get their money back, those bastards.
Right. And so, yeah, what you're referring to is if we have it here in the States at Aldi, where you put it in a quarter here and it unlocks the cart from the one in front of it. And then when you put your cart back, you get your quarter back. And a lot of Europe does have that system. But when I toured, I went from London up to Edinburgh and back. And not every chain does have that system. They have, for instance, Costco's there, where the carts are free roaming, free range carts. And even then, I saw just maybe 1 or 2 loose carts. And I stopped at like I said, a dozen stores, just because it's ingrained in the culture that we don't leave our carts out. I get messages from like Japan and other places like that, where, Belgium, where they said, like, even when they don't have the coin system, like, it's just not a possibility that we would do that, which shows you that it is a culture thing. In Canada too, it's not as good as like the UK, but it's definitely not as bad as the US. And it's just a culture thing. You don't have to behave like a thoughtless jerk. You can, if your neighbors and your family and your friends are doing the right thing. It rubs off on you, and it goes across the country. And when you don't hold people accountable, it doesn't. It's like I was talking about the guy in Carlsbad the other day who told his friend to go and turn it back. And then when I showed up, he's like, "Oh, card narcs." Is that if he wasn't there and he hadn't used that peer pressure, it would be just another cart.
I think that this is a perfect place to end this. You're saving the world one card at a time.
Well, thank you. That's the most gratifying message I ever get. Is like, I used to be a lazy bones, but after seeing your videos, it made me think. And that's the most. If people say you're not changing anybody's mind, card narcs, and I disagree. I've seen it I've seen it in action, and I see it at least anecdotally through the messages.
You're truly doing God's work. Honestly,
you're doing the Lord's work, sir. Keep it up.